All right, let's talk about Nintendo. We're going to dive into how a little card company from way back in the 19th century ended up building a massive digital empire that, let's be honest, has pretty much defined fun for a lot of us.
So let's kick things off with a question that, when you really think about it, sounds kind of crazy. It all starts way, way back in 1889. How in the world did that company end up creating, well, all of this? An entire universe of characters that pretty much everyone on the planet knows and loves. Okay, let's get into it. To really get this story, we've got to rewind. I'm talking over a century ago, long before pixels were even a thing. We're going back to a time of handmade fun. So check this out. The jump Nintendo made is just huge. It's almost hard to believe. In 1889, right, they're making these traditional Japanese playing cards called Hanafuda. Fast forward almost 100 years to 1981, and boom, they dropped their first massive arcade hit, Donkey Kong. And then, get this, just 4 years later, they released the Nintendo Entertainment System in the US and completely changed the game for home entertainment. Forever! Yeah, that move into our living rooms, that was the real revolution. It wasn't just about selling games. Nintendo completely rewrote the rules for what we thought fun at home could be. You see, the NES, what we got here in the States, was actually a new look for their console back in Japan, the Famicom. This is the machine that introduced us to their main man Mario and brought all that awesome arcade energy right to our couches, and people went absolutely crazy for it. And get this, here's a little bit of amazing trivia for you. Our hero Mario, he got his name from a real person, Mario Segali. And who was he? He was the mustachioed landlord of Nintendo's US warehouse. Seriously, you can't make this stuff up. So Nintendo has conquered the living room. What's next? Well, they looked at a whole new frontier, making games something you could just take with you, anywhere. And then they hit us with this incredible 1-2 punch. In '89, they dropped the Game Boy, basically inventing high-quality handheld gaming on the spot. Then, just a year later, they doubled down at home with the Super Nintendo, giving us absolute classics like the very first Super Mario Kart. And when I say the Game Boy's reach was huge, I mean it was literally astronomical. No joke. In 1993, a Russian cosmonaut actually took his Game Boy with him to the Mir space station. It became the first video game console ever played in space. How cool is that? All right, let's jump forward to the mid-90s. This is where Nintendo's next huge idea literally added a whole new dimension to gameplay. So think about it. Up to this point, most games were 2D side-scrollers, you know? You're just moving left and right on a flat screen. But then, in 1996, the Nintendo 64 comes along and just changes everything. Suddenly, we had these fully explorable 3D worlds, the freedom, the depth. It was totally mind-blowing back then.
And that's not all. The N64 wasn't just a leap in technology. It was a huge leap for social gaming. And that's what this 4 is all about. 4 controller ports built right in. For the first time, having your friends over to play wasn't some add-on. It was baked right into the console, ready to go, straight out of the box.
Of course, a console is only as good as its games, right? And that brings us to the man, the legend, the creative genius behind so many of Nintendo's most iconic worlds.
This is Shigeru Miyamoto. He got into the game when the whole video game industry was basically just starting out. And what I find so amazing is where he got his ideas from. He literally drew inspiration from his own childhood, from memories of just exploring the woods, caves, and fields around his home in Japan.
And this recent quote from him really says it all. He said, "I'm really thankful that there is so much energy around things that I have worked on. You can just feel it, right? That deep connection that so many of us have with the worlds and characters he brought to life."
I mean, just look at this list. Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda. When you see them all together like this, you realize the sheer scale of his impact. These aren't just games. They're massive franchises that are still going strong today. And they all came from the mind of this one incredible designer. Okay, so we've gone from playing cards to entire digital universes. It's been an incredible ride, but what's the big takeaway here? Well, Nintendo's real legacy isn't just one game or one console. It's about the fundamental building blocks they gave to the entire industry. They perfected simple, intuitive controls that anyone could pick up. They basically invented high-quality gaming on the go. And they're the ones who made 3D gameplay and playing with your friends a mainstream thing. You know, when you trace it all back,
From that little card company in Kyoto to this global powerhouse, it's clear Nintendo has always been about one thing: finding new, fun, imaginative ways for us to play. And that just leaves us with one big exciting question, doesn't it? After more than 100 years of changing the game, what on earth will they dream up next?